Okay, away we go. We'll turn it over to Admiral Gallaudet. So,
Okay, and do you go by, is Krumenacher the right way?
Krummenacker. I'm not picky though, so
Krumenacher. All
you just
right,
call me
that's great. Well,
LG.
give me
So,
LJ. All right, give me a moment to share my screen, please.
okay,
Oh, there you go.
cool.
And if you
Let's see. It says that you've started screen sharing. I'm just not seeing anything yet. See, Kira, Dave, can you hear us?
I can
Dave,
hear
can you hear
you,
me?
LG.
well, how is the weather in
can't hear
Idaho right
Admiral
now?
Gallaudet.
Oh, okay. No, you popped up. Sorry, you froze for a second there, Admiral. It's too cold. I'll tell you that much. So, about 24
I see
degrees
that.
Fahrenheit.
Gosh, all right. Well, stay warm. How about now? Does everybody hear and see the presentation okay?
Can hear you, hear and see now. Yep.
Okay. Well, hey, so the title of my presentation is The New Scientific Revolution of Anomalous Phenomena, what was previously called UFOs, and now we call Unidentified Anomalous Phenomena, or UAP. And so interesting that you, as a college educator, teacher, are open to this because LJ, because that is definitely the reason I accepted your request. Is I think we really need to get more undergraduates and graduate students studying this phenomenon. Hopefully, my presentation will convince you all of that. So let's just get underway. First, some background about me. I spent 32 years in the U.S. Navy. That was my first day in the Navy right here in 1985 at the U.S. Naval Academy, and that's my dad swearing me in. And my profession in the Navy, I was an oceanographer, which involves doing meteorological forecasting for aviation squadrons, and working on. I worked on 2 aircraft carriers, for example. I also did hydrographic surveys, so making charts of the seafloor, and I also did oceanography analysis and observations for submarines and submarine warfare, and that brought me to the Arctic Ocean on a submarine, for example. I've been my aircraft carrier operations were in the Arabian Sea and Arabian Gulf, and really all around the Western Pacific. I've been around the world several times at sea, and then finally ended up at the Pentagon and had a tour there as the head oceanographer and meteorologist of the Navy. And it was a really rewarding career. I enjoyed it immensely. It was great to apply science for national defense and security. And afterwards, though, I got very lucky, and I was appointed to lead this organization, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, which is a federal agency under the Department of Commerce, and they're the nation's lead ocean, weather, climate, fisheries agency. And it's a really, really cool outfit with 20,000 employees that operate 16 ships that do oceanography and fisheries science, 9 aircraft, some of which fly through hurricanes. We have about 400 small boats and several hundred scuba divers who are all technically trained to do scientific diving, and a couple thousand PhDs. So it was a great place to work. If anybody's interested in the environmental sciences, let me know later, and I'd be happy to help vector you towards good jobs in this agency. It was really rewarding for me. So that's just my background, and I have a PhD in oceanography from Scripps Institution, and a master's, and I got my bachelor's degree at the Naval Academy, as you saw. Another thing, just quickly as an introduction, my favorite job is being a husband and father, and those are my 3 daughters. I'm really excited. My older one is in graduate school in Fort Lauderdale. My middle one just got accepted to the Naval Academy, and my youngest one is a freshman in high school, still figuring stuff out. But I put this slide up here because in this field of UAP, UFO research, it's largely been dominated by white men. If you watch on TV for some of these shows like that cover this, Expedition Unknown, and there's others. Now, I'd like to really encourage women and just more diversity in the group of people studying this. And I certainly would encourage my daughters if they ever wanted to get into it as well. But let me just share with you a bit about my experience that led me into this field. First off, I had a job in the Navy as the superintendent of the United States Naval Observatory. That's the building right there. It's in Washington, D.C. Some people may know that that's where the residence of the Vice President of the United States is. But it also serves an important mission, and that's mapping the stars. And as the universe expands and our galaxy rotates, star positions move over time. And that star positions are important to measure, or monitor, map, if you will, through the creation of star catalogs, because it helps our satellites navigate. If you've ever wondered, well, GPS is telling me where I am, how does the GPS constellation know where it is? It's because they map they fix the satellites off a celestial reference frame. And that's one of the jobs we had. And since I had all these astrophysicists working for me, I began to study astrophysics more and cosmology. And I just gained a great appreciation for the size of the universe. We live in a galaxy that has between 200 and 400 billion stars. And we know there's several billion galaxies in the observable universe. And you just have to think that it would be incredibly arrogant to think we're the only life that exists in this great cosmos. So I had that kind of openness. But then an experience happened to me which changed my whole worldview. And that's when I was a one-star admiral. I reported to this command in Norfolk, Virginia, called the United States Fleet Forces Command. And my job, I was in charge of all the meteorologists in the Navy that work on Navy aircraft carriers. And a group of my people were on the aircraft carrier Theodore Roosevelt in 2015. And at that time, I received an email on the Navy's secret network from my boss, the operations officer, a two-star admiral, and he sent it to me and everybody else, all the other admirals that reported to this command. And I know many of you aren't familiar with the Navy hierarchy or even government in general, so I hope I'm not being too esoteric, but ultimately, he sent this email to 20 or so people. They were all like me, 1- and 2-star admirals. Several were in charge of aircraft carrier strike groups like this one. For example, there's 2 aircraft carrier strike groups in the Eastern Mediterranean right now because of the the Israel-Hamas war. So this is we were training at this time, but that's what these assets are used for. And that picture on the right is a screenshot from what's been reported by people who watch this. It was in the New York Times, these Navy jets that were filming UFOs. And that's what was happening at this time when I got this email. Attached to the secret internet network email was this video of a UFO. And the reason for it was that the email said to all the people it was to, urgent safety of flight issue. And the text, that was the subject. And the text said, hey, if any of you know what these are, tell me right away, because we're having numerous near midair collisions with the Navy jets training out there off the East Coast, which was unbelievable. And they were seeing a fleet of these things all around the airspace. So this really led me to be convinced that we're being visited by things we don't know what they are and that are intelligently controlled. Some people will say, oh, it's got to be some of our own technology or what maybe China or Russia are fielding to spy on us. And I was in the Navy and I had a top secret clearance. And I can tell you with certainty, those things were not built by us or our adversaries. And normally when we operate some new technology, we don't do it in a training range because it's unsafe. So this is a really big issue for me because I was the chief meteorologist of the Navy. And I was responsible for the safety of flight, for aviation training and operations, because weather was usually the major hazard. But now we have these things in the airspace that were a major hazard, and that was a problem. The crazy thing is the day after that email was sent to me, it was wiped from my computer and nobody ever talked about it, which again mystified me because of the near collisions that were occurring in the airspace. But I had been read into secret special access programs, And I know what that's about because those are programs that maybe only a dozen or a few dozen people are allowed to know about. And so I realized, so this UFO data is probably squirreled away into a special access program. And that's why it was taken from the computer, because someone from either the CIA or the Defense Intelligence Agency got acquired it and kept it in the program and removed that inadvertent release of the video. So afterwards, that video was leaked to the New York Times, and it's been well reported now. And I'll share with you some of the Defense Department developments in this field. So first off, let me share this slide with you. It might be kind of unique, but so what did I just tell you? I told you that we're being visited by some kind of intelligence, non-human intelligence. And you have to think to yourself, that's really not as crazy as it is, because just look at all the non-human intelligence on life on this planet. I just got back from the Galapagos Island because I'm a very avid scuba diver with my wife. And you look at just the biodiversity, and these are all non-human intelligences. So why would there not be a similar kind of diversity in the universe? And so that's sort of the new thinking that we're encouraging, me and a group of others in this field, for our people to be thinking about. It's really exciting. It's really world changing. And as young students, I think we need people like you to take this seriously and pursue scientific study. So let me talk a bit about the government. First off, I call this whole phenomena a new scientific revolution, which is akin to that of the 15th and 16th and 17th centuries, which occurred as there was just a new awakening of thought and the understanding of physics and the study of our Earth and our solar system. And of course, people like Galileo, Copernicus before him were changing the view of an Earth-centric worldview, if you will, to now a sun-centric, and ultimately that's been changed. So that is happening today. And what I think an event that really heralded this was earlier this year, and it was a congressional hearing on UAP. And I don't know if you all, anybody, I'm sure your teacher here, Dr. Krummenacher, knows, but there was this hearing on the Congress in the House of Oversight Committee about this phenomena. And what came out of that is that the U.S. government has been covering up data, information, and actually recovered vehicles or craft that have crashed. And we have taken not only the pilots, the biological entities, as well as the material. It all seems stunning and unbelievable, but I know it to be true. I know people who have worked in those programs. And these are three of the people that testified, two being pilots and one being an intelligence official who knew about these programs. And the big issue that was coming out is the government knows about this. Two, the public really needs to be involved with policy development and understanding on how to react to this, because it is so world changing. And three, we really want to get more scientific and academic institutions to contribute to the scientific study of these. I'm going to talk a little bit about these individuals and in a way to attest to their credibility, as well as, and you can see, by the way, I'm on the very, very far left. I was in the front row of that hearing. And again, I really think it was historic in nature. But to give you some insight on this hearing and what was revealed, this was probably the most astonishing revelation. It was by this person, a former major in the Air Force and a senior official in the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency, an agency I know well, whose past three commanders I've known personally, vice admirals, and so David Grush is his name, and he is the one who was on a task force to look at UAP and had uncovered the fact that the programs and the information about these UFO materials and pilots are being hidden by the government and being shielded from congressional oversight, which is against the law. So that was why he came out as a whistleblower. He his career I know really well because he worked in a lot of spaces I worked in. I was also in the intelligence community in the Navy. And so I'm trying to convey to you that these are very legitimate witnesses. Another witness was this person, Commander David Fravor. He was in command of a Navy aircraft squadron, a jet squadron of F-18s. And he observed a UFO that was well known and regarded as what he called the Tic Tac incident, because the UFO that he saw coming out of the water looked like had no control surfaces, looked like it was a white featureless cylinder, and it did things that none of our aircraft could do in terms of its accelerations, its change in direction. And again, it had none of our modern aircraft could repeat what he observed it to do. And his co-pilot was a younger female pilot who I met with just recently. And so they're very legitimate witness on the topic of these UFOs that we really can't explain. And the other witness was this person, Ryan Graves, who was also another pilot, and he was on another aircraft carrier, the one I mentioned previously, off the East Coast. Commander Fravor was off the West Coast in 2004, and then Lieutenant Ryan Graves was off the East Coast in 2015. So we were seeing that credible witnesses, military pilots, and intelligence officials are having these encounters or seeing that the government's hiding this information. And now this gentleman, Ryan, has formed a group called Americans for Safe Aerospace, a nonprofit that I'm on the advisory board of, to encourage the government, not just the Navy, but also organizations like the Federal Aviation Administration, to allow pilots and observers to make more routine reports of these. Because right now there's a big stigma about this. UFOs are regarded as fringe science in the mainstream scientific community. And that's it. That's why I'm talking to you today, is we need to change that. Now, a couple other things. The DOD was directed by the Defense Department, was directed by Congress to stand up basically a UFO office to look at reports and do some scientific study. The person who directs it is on the right side of this picture, Sean Kirkpatrick, and that guy who testified, retired Major David Grush, is on the left there. And what's happening right now is the government is not sharing all it needs to know through this office, even though Congress directed this office to be established in 2021. So right now you're still seeing some of this cover up going on. Interestingly, because of congressional interest, without any direction, NASA even stood up a study team to look at UFOs. They reported on it recently. They didn't really share much information, but it's interesting. It just sort of attests to the fact that the whole topic and our way we approach it is changing rapidly. Now, I have joined this Galileo project at Harvard University. Avi Loeb is a pretty highly regarded and well-known figure in this area of UAP studies. And what he's doing, I think, is the right way we should be doing this. He's setting up a global network of telescopes, and with an array of other sensors adjacent to them, like acoustic sensors and near infrared and environmentals, so that we can do some systematic study of these and start searching. And this is what's done for astronomy. We have networks of telescopes around the world that do routine searches in the solar system and beyond to discover new features. And that's how we know about black holes and dark matter, and which we don't know much about really, and gravitational waves, for example. So he's trying to take this to the next step and look in the part of space nearer to the Earth to see if we can find more evidence of these of visitors and their technology. Now, Avi went, and one of his recent accomplishments was to not only observe in previous data one of the first interstellar meteors that we have ever seen, but meaning it came from an interstellar source, not from our own solar system. But he also set out on an expedition off in the Pacific to recover the fragments from that. And that was a pretty groundbreaking expedition, because when a meteorite interacts with the atmosphere and ocean and breaks up, it dissolves into basically a million pieces. And the only way we could really find those materials was towing a magnetic sled which had to go down a kilometer of ocean of water depth and drag it along where we suspected it had deposited. My old agency NOAA did this off the west coast of the U.S. in 2018, but the meteorite was only in about 100 meters of water, and but we used those same techniques to go and retrieve the fragments of this interstellar meteor. Avi is interested because he believes that possibly anything from interstellar origin could potentially be technical remains of a extraterrestrial spacecraft. It's not really too hard to think that might be possible when you know that we've sent spacecraft outside of our solar system, and who knows where that will go. And if, again, the size of the universe, the number of exoplanets that we know exist in habitable zones is a large number. And so he's really trying to think out of the box. He gets criticized by a lot of mainstream scientists, but I think this is the new thinking that we need to have, especially when we know that things have arrived here and the government's covering it up. Now, my personal focus, since I'm an oceanographer and have a lot of experience in government agencies that collect ocean data, I am interested in the evidence of these UAP interacting with the sea surface or even maybe into the ocean. And we know this occurs. This, for example, is data leaked from the Navy, the U.S. Navy ship USS Omaha. A picture there is on the lower left. Collected this data with one of their sensors, and we saw basically the UAP going in and out of the water. And that's what I'm personally looking into. It's interesting because I have found people are interested, people of really high credibility and reputations. This person is Victor Vescovo, is like the Neil Armstrong of the ocean. He set records in 2019 by diving in the deepest trenches, the 5 deepest trenches in the world's oceans, all below 10,000 meters. We're talking 7 miles down. And he did this in a small submersible you see there, and he funded it himself. And when I was at NOAA, I partnered with him. I sent my people on the ship, and they collected data. He collected data for us, ocean data, because the ocean is so unknown. We've not mapped more about 40% of the entire global seafloor. That means 60% of the global seafloor has basically never been seen. We know more about the surface of Mars and the moon than we do about the Earth's ocean. And then when you think about the ocean volume, only 5% of it, or about 5 to 10% of it's been explored. And that means 90% of the ocean volume has never been seen, which is incredible. So there might be a rich area of exploration for all types of things, life, as well as this phenomena possibly. So I asked Victor in 2021, he still had a ship and submersible, when he told me he was doing a test of a new sonar off Southern California. And for people who follow the UAP phenomena, the SoCal region's basically a hotspot. And there were some areas I wanted him to look at to see if there was any interaction with these phenomena with the seafloor, or maybe places they were coming from. Because you have to wonder, if they go in the water, where do they go? And I had some areas I thought I would be interested in him looking at, but I wasn't sure he'd be open to it. And so when I told him, he said, send me the coordinates. So he wanted to map them. Well, one of the features, or a couple of the features were depicted here. This is the Huntington Beach is near Los Angeles on the upper right there. And there's an island called Santa Catalina on the lower left. And now there were areas where we saw UAP encounter of the ocean, and we, the Navy and other observers. And I thought it'd be worth mapping those areas and seeing what the seafloor looked like. And he found this feature. On the upper left there is the larger picture of it where he mapped around Catalina. And this is a zoom in, and it's a 3D bathymetric image of a feature that I can't explain. I've taken to a number of geologists, and it looks like a part of this ridge, or they call it a knoll, is displaced. And that's 2 kilometers from the incline there. And you see it's a horizontal displacement of 2 kilometers, and the debris is relatively intact. And that is very unusual to me because normally undersea debris flows are like avalanches. They're more smooth, and they don't sort of have this sort of intact nature. And I had to wonder what caused this. There's not active volcanism going on in this area. And so he mapped it. Next thing we're going to do is get an ROV and dive on it and see if we can get any evidence of possible, again, is this UAP interacting with the seafloor, or possibly are they even using this as a place to go into the below the seabed? We don't know. These are all things we're trying to. It's all new territory, but that's the feature I wanted him to get a bit of high resolution view of, and we're going to get an expedition hopefully this year to get some video on it with a remotely operated vehicle operated from a ship. So just an example of like the new sort of territory we're in, and looking for and investigating the phenomena. Now, interestingly, I proposed to a body, a national body called the Naval Studies Board in the National Academies of Science, Engineering, and Medicine, about doing a survey for of all the government data sets. So the U.S. government has a lot of ocean data. It was my old agency, NOAA, as well as another office I was in charge of, the Naval Oceanographic Office, and the Office of Naval Intelligence. And so I proposed to that board, and it was chaired by this person, a 4-star retired admiral, Gary Roughhead, that we do a survey of all the data, ocean data in the government, and look for anomalous phenomena. Because normally, if it's something that is unexpected, people wouldn't pay attention to it. It'd be filtered out. I know that to be the case for acoustic data, and he thought it'd be a good idea. They actually approved it, and now I'm just have to find some funding from those agencies to go do this survey. So we're seeing real credible people now say, yeah, this is worth looking at. Now, interesting thing about the hearing I told you about. So remember this major who was in at the congressional hearing, this David Grush. It's interesting when you think about this fact. This is a funny article and it kind of mocks the whole hearing in that if we're being visited by non-human intelligence from not from this world, that's really one of the biggest questions humanity's had in the history of civilization. Are we alone? And the other one is really what happens when we die. Well, we're finding now we're not alone, and that really answers that big question. And but because of government secrecy and stigma, the media, the public, they really haven't paid much attention to this, which is unbelievable to me. So I applaud your instructor for actually putting this in front of you. And you're going to see that this is going to come out more and more. And, and I'm going to conclude with some of my current efforts. Now, when you look at the way Hollywood has addressed this subject of other intelligence in the universe, it's pretty diverse. And you have to wonder, well, what do you think the outcome is going to be? And if you listen to Hollywood, well, it could be good or it could be not so good. And the important thing I want you to take away from this is Hollywood should not be in charge of our narrative on this or our policy development. And right now, the government is ignoring it or covering it up, actually both. And so what I have joined is a new group called the Soul Foundation. And it's led by these two gentlemen. On the left is Dr. Gary Nolan, who is at Stanford University, and he's a tenured professor. He has very accomplished experience in medicine and material science. And he's examined some of the government material. And he's concluded they're made with industrial processes that are not from this planet. And that's convinced him to stand the Soul Foundation with the gentleman on the left, Dr. Peter Skafish, who is a sociocultural anthropologist. So what Soul is doing is they are taking a hard science and humanities approach, a holistic approach to UAP scientific research and policy development. And their goal is to engage the Congress, the Hill, the public, so that we have a more deliberate and thoughtful approach to UAP, and that we can really come up with ideas and recommendations on how to investigate them with research and what kind of public policies to provide. And right now, there's none. The government's hiding it. And when you can think about how world-changing this is, that's just totally inappropriate. So I'm on their advisory board. And again, I encourage y'all to look up online and follow this group. There's another thing going on, and this was on the agenda of the symposium the Soul Foundation had last week as their inaugural coming out, if you will. And if you see that this listed here is this Schumer amendment. So what's going on in Congress right now is you had in the House a hearing, and what you have in the Senate is a bill proposed to have the government release what it knows in a controlled way over a period of a few years about UAP materials, the biological specimens that the government may have, which we're referring to as non-human intelligence, and it raise public awareness and foster a more open discussion. And that's what's right now being voted on in the Congress right now, and it's being attached to the annual defense bill. So pay attention, because this is really going to determine whether we're going to see change soon or not about how we address these, again, these phenomena that are reordering our view of reality. Now, a recommendation I have from my time at NOAA, I worked with the White House to develop this, a strategy for STEM education. We need the White House to do a strategy for UAP, both for policy and research. That's the kind of direction it has to happen. You have Congress acting, the White House is silent. And so that is a recommendation. And I use this as an example because I think that STEM education itself should be addressing UAP and including students in the active research of these. Again, this is one of the greatest. This is one of the greatest stories of our century, and our youth and our young folks in academia need to be a part of this. So, and I conclude here with this, an interesting observation about aviation safety. In the early days of aviation, and this is a picture of the Galileo project at Harvard, I'm a part of it, and you see there's a lot of postdocs and even young undergraduate and graduate students in this picture, and that's what we need. We need grad schools and like your institution to begin developing coursework on this. And so, and that's it. Is I think as we get more of a new generation to take this seriously, we're going to change the culture. And again, the story I have from aviation is in the 60s and 70s, it was regarded as embarrassing and career killing if you reported problems with your aircraft that you could not correct. There was this ego thing about pilots, and a lot of pilots died because of that. But nowadays in aviation, the aviation safety culture is such that you immediately report anything wrong with the aircraft, and that's raised the safety level and totally almost made mishaps, the mishap rate down to zero, near zero. So that's a good thing. And I think we need to apply that same change in reducing stigma to this phenomena. Now, I'm just going to conclude and open it up for questions with this. If we are finding visitors from outside our world who have some technology that we don't know how they do it, and we don't even know why they're here, there's a whole lot of challenges and opportunities that present ourselves with that. The opportunities are certainly great in terms of the technology and could redefine transportation and how our greenhouse gas emissions affect climate, energy, biomedicine, and biotech, and just our understanding of the universe. Of course, there's also challenges. We don't know their intent, and that's a risky place to be. But if we just don't ask the question, we're never going to get the answer. So with that, I want to thank you all, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it back to your instructor, and I'd be happy to take questions
Okay.
as soon as let's see.
Cool. There we go. Let's see. I forget. I haven't been showing up the whole time. So,
Hey, thanks for your time.
yeah.
Give me a second here.
Thank you, Admiral Gallaudet. Very much appreciate that summary. In the interest of time, we'll jump right into these questions. Each of my students have submitted some, and I'll let them ask them. On behalf of student Abby, we'll start with her. So, Abby was wondering, why do you think there continues to be such a negative stigma around this phenomenon?
Well, Abby, that's a great question. And there's a couple of ways to answer that. But so, of course, there is one. And it's funny. The phenomena have attracted a great deal of non-scientific attention. So, and that itself then, with a large body of people who aren't scientifically trained, has damage the reputation of those who actually are trying to address the phenomena scientifically. The other part answer is the U.S. government has deliberately spread disinformation on the topic, so they fueled it in a big way, and so it's really a two-part answer, and that's what the organizations I mentioned, myself, are seeking to change.
All right. Thank you. Let's see. We'll move on. Anna, it is your turn if you're ready. We got you there, Anna. Can you hear us? Let's do.
Be on mute.
Sorry, what's that?
Is she on mute?
Let's see. Yeah, she's on mute. Let's try that.
Okay, I'll check the chat out, Anna.
Okay, sorry, Anna. Yeah, when you guys come up, if you can unmute yourself or just chat us up here. So. Is your typing coming? Oh, there we go. Cool. Oh, yeah. Do you see that there, Admiral?
I don't yet. Okay, hold on. That is a great question, and we don't know. This is a question. So I'm with a group of people who are helping influence the Congress on this, and they're all people who are familiar with the program of crash retrieval and study of UAP. And the answer is we just don't know why they're letting themselves be observed, because you're right. There are instances where they're being observed, and then where we learn that they're not showing themselves, if you will. And I'll give you an example. There's a scientific team associated with that Harvard University group that's doing some studies of the phenomena in New York, and what they've observed is they're showing themselves these. They manifest in orbs, basically lights that they see in the infrared, but not the visible. So there are situations where you're right, they don't intend to be observed, but you can with certain sensors. And we just don't know. We have not discerned a pattern, and we really don't know, because of the government cover-up, if they have revealed themselves and they've communicated, and if that's shed any light on when and when they don't do that. So we just don't know. And I love your curiosity. We need to ask questions like that, and we need to research them. Thank you, Anna.
Oh, yeah, good job, Anna. Cassidy, you're up if you'd unmute for us.
So like, if alien intelligence is real and they're here, which evidence is showing they are, like, what could this mean for international politics? Like, if they're hostile, is it going to be some, oh, let's all band together to fight this thing, or do we just not know?
Well, right. And Cassidy, is it Cassidy? Thank you for your question and attention. That's another great question. And that's why I'm with that organization called the Soul Foundation, because those are the questions we want to address. And now we understand from that testimony that other nations possess some of the materials and have made observations of these visitors. So we know that, but we've not had any open discussion about how, as an international community. I have a very good op-ed from a friend of mine who is working on this issue that addressed that question. And his conclusion was this, Cassidy, that, well, you could either think it's something that we have to fight, right? That we have to, but then that's very problematic, because we have no idea what their intentions or capabilities are. But maybe what we do is approach it like we did when the Soviet Union, before Russia, launched the first satellite called Sputnik. What did that do? Well, it got us really worried as a nation, and it involved us into the space race with Russia, Soviet Union, But as time went by, that initial national security concern led to an international space program that advanced technology and international collaboration, ultimately resulting in the International Space Station. So what we would like to see is nations begin talking and collaborating now on engaging, addressing, and researching the phenomena. That's what I suggest. And thank you. That was a great question.
Thank you, Cassidy. All right, Charlotte, your turn.
All right. My question is, what is the downside to full transparency on this issue?
Good questions. Wow, you people you've looked into this. Well, there are many who are arguing against transparency because one possibly could reveal capabilities that we would need for national security. Of course, attached with the retrieval program is a reverse engineering program. And sadly, there's still going to be bad people in this world. We're not all going to unite right away. And because of that, we need to have a strong military that can defeat adversaries. I wish that wasn't the case, but that's how it is. And so when you think about these technologies, that's why this amendment we talked about that the Majority Leader Schumer sponsored talks about controlled disclosure, a more deliberate path where a review panel looks at the technologies and elements that we want to disclose and decides and recommends to the president what we should release and what we should not. So there is a possible downside through that. There's also a kind of debate right now about, are people ready for this? And that's also a legitimate question to ask. I think this is going to throw a lot of people a curveball because again, our sense of reality does not incorporate this. We sort of speculate and we imagine through Hollywood basically what would this be like, but now when it becomes real, that changes things, and it's changing right now. So that's just, we can't ignore reality. Ignorance is not the best approach to national security or national policy, in my opinion. But thank you, Charlotte.
Thanks, Charlotte. Crystal.
Okay. So I guess I kind of sort of have two questions. It's the first one is, why create a task force now? Why shed light on the UAPs now?
Okay, Chris, that's a great question. And I think the real answer to that is why not? In that we have so much to gain. And again, I don't think ignorance is a good national policy. And that's what we're doing. We're hiding things from the public. The public should be involved with public policy development. And we're hiding it from them. We're hiding the fact, really important ontological reality and truth. And so that I think is wrong. And so now, when you say why now, I like that question because that goes back to then why haven't we done it earlier? And again, it was really a holdover from the Cold War when we wanted to classify so much and keep it from the Russians. And I'll be honest with you. So let's be specific. I know. And I've not seen, but I trust my sources. I know people who are in the programs. We have recovered craft and materials from crashed UFOs, several, and they're different types. And the first ones we know of, well, some of the earliest were in the 30s in the area around New Mexico, and in the 40s. So the reason none of that was shared with the public, again, was right around World War II. We were doing the Manhattan Project, and it was just everything was classified and secret because of the threats and et cetera. So it really got grouped into our nuclear secrets and as well as our Cold War level of paranoia. And now we're finally able to break out of that. And so I'll be honest, the Schumer Amendment is remarkable. You ought to look at it. It is legislation that talks about two things: non-human intelligence, NHI, and technology of unknown origin, TUO. Those are real terms that the Congress has put in a draft law. That's pretty serious. I mean, that's not arrived at without real serious thought and proof.
We actually read that. They
Thanks,
had to read
Crystal.
that before class, so. All right, thanks, Crystal. The ever honorable Dave, you're up.
Hi, Admiral Gallaudet. I know the government is hiding, like, the existence of UAPs, but does the military have like a standard operating procedure concerning UAPs? And if they do, is there anything you can tell us like about any of that?
Yeah, Dave, good question. Yeah, so the answer is no, and this is a big reason why I'm speaking out. I'm pretty sure I'm one of the only, if not the only, retired admiral speaking up on this because uh, right now those programs are in what they call special access programs, which means they're very listed, they're very restricted. They keep the list very small. They maintain a list of only a few people. And were you in the military? Okay.
No, I wasn't, but my dad was. So.
Oh, okay. And so, and because of that, I would just say extreme secrecy. And the example is the email that I received, and then it was wiped away from everybody's computer and no one talked about it. So what you have is this overclassification is creating a situation where now pilots, my friend Ryan Graves, he was out there flying, nearly hitting these things, and he didn't have leaders say, all right, we're going to put in place these procedures, right? Because it was so classified, no one talked about it. But that created a failure of leadership. His leadership couldn't put in place safety mitigation measures, which is wrong. Okay, that is aviation safety. That breaks every rule of it, and that's happening with the FAA. FAA pilots, they know that if they report a UFO, their careers are over, and that's something we're trying to change too. And in fact, let me anchor. That's a great question because this Americans for Safe Aerospace, that's exactly what we're advocating for. Reporting procedures that are standard, that people are not ridiculed for, and that are encouraged to make. So the more data we're going to get, the more we're going to learn, the better we're able to address really important operational and policy level type decisions. So thank you.
Oh, good question, Dave. Edgar, your turn. So you might be muted, Edgar.
He posted it in the chat.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Let me get to it. Hold on. Give me a second here. Do you think there is more strong data out there supporting the idea that UAP are strong evidences of there being advanced alien technology out there in space? I'll tell you this, and again, I've been studying it. I know a lot of people who know more than me, and we've had discussions. We don't know where they're from. So, in fact, when you look at the Schumer legislation, the reason we use the term NHI, non-human intelligence, and technology of unknown origin, we don't try to presuppose where it originates from, and that sounds really weird. But what I mean is, we really don't know if it comes from the cosmos here or another dimension. We really just don't know the source, and we're better off right now not assuming where it's from, and which is again, it's hard to even believe we're having this discussion, but that's how it is. That is absolutely how we have observed these, and I know the people who've seen the materials and have studied them, and they don't know. You still don't understand how they're made, where they come from, what the intent is, thus the need to study these more deliberately with a very active research program.
Question, Edgar. Okay, Jamie.
All right. So do you believe that UAPs have anything to do with reported cattle mutilations?
Thanks, Jamie. I love your headphones. I don't know. That is out there. I've seen the reporting, and you can look at there's some books out there you might want to read if you're interested, like The Secret of Skinwalkers at the Pentagon is one, and you've probably seen the show Skinwalker Ranch, where some of this has been investigated. And I don't know. I don't think we want to get into beliefs right now. I think we want to get into what we know and don't know. And that's why I like the Soul Foundation, is they have very much a a scientific approach. Now, beliefs are more about policy. What policy we think we want to pursue, but in terms of what's really happening and the connections to make and correlations, right now I can't say. Others maybe have ideas, and that's something we should be studying.
Cool. Thank you, Jamie. John, you got a good question. See, I can't hear you. It says you're unmuted, but not hearing you. You can type it in there if you want.
All right, what about now?
There you go.
I had to change microphones. Have there been any UAF activity around the INL site? I know there's been reported activity around other government sites, but I was wondering about the INL site or any other unexplained phenomenon related to UAFs.
That's a very good question, and I will tell you that. And I have talked to some people. One person who has observed the phenomena in that area, but I don't have any more data than that. And there are a lot of anecdotes and reports out there that are unofficial. But I think what that points to, Jonathan, is that there are areas where, because this is really covered up, we should set up dedicated instrumentation and do what scientists do, just like Avi Loeb of Harvard. Let's just study the stuff. Let's put in sensors. Let's perform systematic observation. And that's what scientists do. It's what I've done in my PhD research, where we record data over an area and we examine it. And that's what we need. I think so. It's a great question. I know that area is where others have observed phenomena. I think we should instrument the heck out of that place.
Cool. Excellent. Good question, John. How are you doing on time, Admiral? Are things going okay? I know we're getting close here, and I've got 3 more student questions.
Oh, I'll take them all. That's fine.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So, all right, Cadence, your turn.
Okay. So my question is, what kind of information do you believe may be released should the Schumer Amendment pass? Or to be more specific, do you have any hypothesis on the contents of federal records on UAPs?
Oh, you've done your homework, kid. It's good stuff. I do not have I don't know what are in the federal records right now on UAPs, but some of the things I know you want to see is how often are we being visited, and what do we know about the visitors, and how they visit us through what? There's some of these basic questions I think that are important for the public to know. Again, so we can put in place policies and programs to better understand them. I mean, is the public at risk? That's something we should be asking. Look at the billions of dollars we invest to create these early warning systems of radars and satellites for national security. And if this is happening, which I know it is, we really need to answer some questions about the nature of the interactions, and to know if the public is safe, and then what can we learn from that? And this is what I'm learning, is that we know that there are multiple types of NHIs visiting us, and I have reason to believe, based on the people I know who've been in the programs, some are benevolent and some aren't. So what does that mean? And it's probably, and that's not that's not surprising when you think about it. You can just look at the history of human colonization, and you've seen that. So yeah, those are some of the things I think. But I think that's a great fundamental question that these organizations I mentioned are pursuing. So thank you, Cadence.
Good job, Cadence. Okay, Kira, you're up.
Okay. First of all, thank you, Admiral Gallaudet, for taking time to talk to us today. That's pretty awesome. I know you're probably very busy. I had a different question, but as we've been talking more about pilot training, especially off the coast, and how it's not really safe for someone's career to talk about if they've seen anything. So I plan on next month starting training for being a commercial pilot, and I'll stay in Rexburg area, so I won't be off the coast. But in the future, as I do more commercial work, there's a chance that maybe I would see something. And so who you're saying it's important to report it, but it's not safe for my career. So who would I report that to if I ever ran into a situation like that?
Yeah, and your name is Kira? Well, good luck. Good luck to you in your pilot career. That's wonderful, I think. I read on an earlier slide, I referenced this nonprofit called ASA, Americans for Safe Aerospace. And that is the purpose of that organization. This former Navy pilot who observed these phenomena, Ryan Graves, he has a podcast, by the way, called Merged, and I encourage you to check it out. And he wants to serve as that entity which takes in reports. And he's interviewed a number of pilots who've had observations. So it's a great podcast. And that's what he wants to do. That's his mission. Until advocate for the policy for the FAA to encourage open reporting. And until then, be that repository for pilots to go to and make those reports. So there, look it up, asa.org. I'm on their advisory board. And thank you so much for your willingness to support that.
Cool.
Good luck with your training.
It's a good question, Kira. That was really relevant. I didn't even think of that. So spot on.
Yeah.
And Will, your turn.
Howdy. You kind of touched on it a little bit during the discussion, but I just wanted to know whether they're confirmed or under investigation. What's the oldest recorded sighting of a UAP?
Well, Will, there is a podcast, or I'd encourage you to check out. So I think everybody knows who Joe Rogan is, and he interviewed that witness for the UAP hearing, David Grush, like last week or so, and you can check it out. And actually, what I'll do, LJ, I'll go and send you a bunch of links. Maybe you could share with the students.
Yeah,
and I have this one. And it's a long one, but he addresses that. And so I don't have firsthand knowledge, but that guy does. And he could not say everything because it still remains classified. But he basically said the earliest were in the 30s, and he knew of instances even before that. Now, interestingly, the Soul Foundation includes a broad range of scientists, and one of them is a woman named Diana Pasulka, and she is a professor of religious studies at, I think, North Carolina State University. And I like that this group includes both, again, people from the humanities and those with hard scientific degrees, physics, etc. And a number of these people in religious studies looked hard and believe that a number of, and this is more of a, this is not hard data. This is more of a potential hypothesis that a lot of ancient sightings could be attributed to things like this in all the world's religions. I'll just say that. So your question's kind of open-ended there, Will. We know from government programs, again, probably even before the 30s, but when you look at some of the history, there are those who believe or who assess or have raised the possibility of it being going way back to antiquity. All right, and I think that's a good way to conclude there. Any more there?
Are you got time if I ask you 2 questions, Admiral? Would that be okay?
Sure, you bet, LJ.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So first off, I know a lot of my scientific colleagues would think I've gone off the deep end addressing this. I would like to know, what would you say is the best scientific evidence available publicly now that scientists should be looking at to have more of an open mind?
That's a great question. Let me think about that. Well, I would get familiar, for one, with Avi Loeb's work. He has 2 books, Interstellar and Extraterrestrial. And that's a great, because that's just very hard science about, and it'll open your mind to the possibilities in the cosmos. And I think those are good books to, and highly respect his scientific credentials. But then when you look farther, unfortunately, most of the data is classified in terms of looking a little more at what's observed here on this Earth. And so I don't have right now any references for you for that. But I might have, when I send you some links, I might have, if I have anything, I'll look in my databases and see. But that's the point of what we're trying to have, is have these start studying, have the phenomena studied openly in the scientific community, which is not occurring. It's been restricted and classified. So I like your question, and we should go there. I also think, and this is really good that you addressed this, a lot of my colleagues would think I've gone off my rocker, right?
Yeah.
And that's funny, because here, I'm going to share with you a little story if you got a few minutes.
Yeah, you're fine.
So I led this big agency and a number of atmospheric scientists and et cetera. And one of them was a lab director, very esteemed climate scientist. And I saw him at the American Meteorological Society meeting last year, and we had an exchange about disruptive science. And I just kind of on a whim, since I'm not in the government anymore, in our email I said, "Do you want to hear about really disruptive science?" And I shared with him what I was doing, and he said, "I don't think you're off your rocker. Let me tell you this." And he shared with me an observation from a NASA aircraft of a UAP that was near the North Pole, where there's no civil aircraft. It was a NASA atmospheric chemistry mission flying near the North Pole at a very high altitude where planes just don't go. And they had a very clear observation of a lighted object that stayed there for a long time, and then rapidly moved away and accelerated off. So he kept that video. They had video of it, and he always wondered what is that. Sadly, the video was destroyed in a house fire. But there are more people, there are more scientists open to this than you know. And actually, let me share this. I really appreciate your courage here, because I think you're right. That's why I didn't stop. I've had nobody in the undergraduate, graduate education has come to me, and so
wow.
I had two NOAA scientists that operate on our ship. They observed a clear triangular craft off of New York when they were underway. I mean, and they had multiple observations. It was silent. And these are three mariners, professional federal employees, and they all came to me, and we had a really interesting discussion about this. So and then I've had multiple naval personnel come to me. I saw that. I saw this, and they know what they saw. So I don't know what they are, but the more that we open this up to research and science, the better. And we want to make sure we include our youth, like you're doing, and not exclude them, and keep it in the realm of people with advanced degrees. Or we should make this part of higher education.
Yeah, I agree. No, I appreciate that answer. Makes me want to go camping at the INL for maybe a week or two. But
gosh, tell me what you find.
Okay, my very last question here. So regarding the Schumer Amendment, I had my students go through and look at some of that. As I saw, it looks like it may not make it through in the best form. Do you think what would you suggest is a good alternative, or where do you think we go if that gets kind of watered down?
Right. I don't know. I know how this works in the Hill, and the way I worked with multiple pieces of legislation on everything from coral reefs to space weather, and it's sort of iterative. So we may get a watered down bill and deal with it, but then we can engage the Congress again during the next Congress to improve it and reauthorize it. So all is not lost if this one bill doesn't go through, or it comes out and we don't like everything in it. It's unfortunate that we have these special interests that are trying to take parts out of it, but that is the nature of the process, sadly, and that's therefore, like the Sol Foundation, the Galileo Project, Americans for Safe Aerospace, the three entities whose boards I'm on, they're all encouraging this to happen independent of government, and as well as encouraging the right steps forward in the government. And that's just kind of how it goes. So don't give up the hope. Keep doing what you're doing. And thank you. Thank you so much for the positive influence you have on your students. You have a great group of people, and I thought all the questions were first rate. And I wish you all the best in your careers and your education.
Well, we really appreciate your time, Admiral Gallaudet. We'll let you go here and we'll have a class discussion, but I'll drop you a line later. You're free to leave, and thank you again, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hey, good job, LJ and team. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
You too. Catch you later.
All right.
Okay, students. So what we're going to do here, we're going to have a quick discussion on this. I will stop recording so you can be as blatantly honest as you want, but let's just have a quick discussion here. So you can all take your